Welcome to Women Finding Clarity, the podcast that ignites your inner power and guides you on a journey to uncover the boundless potential of the universe. I'm Pascale Cook-Fernandez, your podcast host, business mentor, resident Reiki master, and abundantly aligned, heart-centered friend. Join me every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time as we embark on a transformative adventure where we align our energies, elevate our businesses, and thrive in every aspect of life. If you're an entrepreneur seeking lasting success and are ready to call in abundance like never before, you're in the right place. Remember, the universe is abundant and success is your birthright. Let's align, elevate, and thrive together, one conversation at a time. Hello, and welcome to Women Finding Clarity. I'm your host, Pascale Cook-Fernandez, and today, just like last week, I want to start by asking you how you're doing. It can often feel like the world is on fire and literally about to explode, because for some people, it is. And I know that saying this can be overwhelming. It can be heartbreaking. It can be excruciating, but it's also all of those things, and it's an understatement of what the reality for some people in the world is right now. And even though that might not be your physical reality, because the stress of everything that's going on in the world right now affects each of us for sure. So check in with yourself. Find a quiet space where you can just be alone. Close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. And as you're doing that, ask yourself, how am I? Then just wait. Stay there. Stay there in that space and see what comes up for you after you ask yourself, how am I? This response that you receive will be your soul speaking to you. It's that place inside of you that is your innateness, your true essence. And what comes up might just surprise you. So be willing to sit in that space and be willing to ask the question and be brave enough to listen for the answer. And when you're ready to leave that space of asking and listening, I encourage you to go then and do two things. The first thing is do something nice for yourself. That might be taking a walk, drinking a glass of water, or even just taking time to read a book that you've been wanting to read. The second thing I want you to do is to do something nice for someone else. Doing for others, being of service to others is the fastest way to make ourselves feel better. I want to share with you something very personal. Yesterday, I received a piece of snail mail, which, is in itself exciting because it wasn't a bill. And what it was a note from a very dear friend who lives across the country. And the note inside the envelope said that she is so grateful to have me in her life. And when I opened that note, a bunch of pink glittery hearts came out of it, which made me so very happy. And the envelope, the note said more, but I just want to keep that part more personal for myself. But you get the idea. But also, the envelope included two stickers, one that said love and had a beautiful rainbow, and the other said, "You are awesome." And finally, there was a paper calendar that a friend of hers had created called "I Stand for Love." The calendar and the stickers were the cherry on top of the sundae, not to mention the sprinkle of the pink glittery hearts. But just receiving her sweet, heartfelt note in the mail was everything. In a time of such sadness and uncertainty, spreading love and kindness is where it's at, you guys. So go do something for someone else. Snail mail is amazing, but maybe it's just bringing a neighbor a plate of cookies that you baked, or leaving a sweet note for a stranger under their windshield wiper. Just do something. As an aside, I put the link to this beautiful calendar in show notes so you can check it out and maybe even stand for love yourself. Before I introduce this evening's amazing guest, who absolutely stands for love and so many other things, I want to tell you about what's going on here at Women Finding Clarity. I'd love for you to mark your calendars for November 15th, 16th, and 17th from 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm hosting a 3-day virtual event called the Business Breakthrough Challenge. In such uncertain times, do you find yourself asking, who am I to think I have anything to offer the world? Instead, I challenge you to ask yourself, who am I to not offer my gifts to the world to impact the greater good? You have lessons you've learned throughout your life, and those learned lessons could benefit so many people. What if you could turn your life lessons into a profitable business while also creating a positive impact? Join me for this 3-day virtual business breakthrough challenge to see how you can start using your life lessons to not only be of service to others, but create greater financial impact for you and for your family. Your life lessons are your gifts. You can register for this free event at womenfindingclarity.com/profit or by clicking the link I put in show notes. So sign up now and see what's possible. And if this event makes you think of someone else, please share the link with them because it's a free event. There's no limit on how many people can attend. And it would be my honor to not only host you, but also any friends or family who you feel like could use their life lessons to make a greater impact in the world. And now I want to introduce you to my amazing guest for this evening. Dr. Esther Zeledón is not only a master of making dreams work, but embodies the resilient spirit of a Latina immigrant. Her rich and diverse background has been the cornerstone of her pioneering work as a life coach, speaker, workshop facilitator, international diplomat, entrepreneur, and scientist. With a commitment to inclusivity, she has made a tangible impact on individuals and businesses from varied cultures, bridging gaps across communities, corporations, and countries. Drawing from her unique experiences and insights, she has crafted a transformative formula for balanced success and brilliant productivity, empowering everyone to envision and manifest their limitless life and business. Without further ado, welcome Dr. Esther Zeledón. Esther, welcome and thank you for being here at Women Finding Clarity.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
I know we were supposed to have this conversation previously and it didn't work out on my end, so I'm so happy it's working out now.
Yay, me too.
You're such a good sport. So, um, I really want to jump in because I feel like everything you're doing is just so yummy and needed at this time in the world and with the climate of the world right now. So, your business is Be Act Change. And before we jump into all the details of that, how did this come to be? Because I mean, Be Act Change, you don't just make that up. So tell me how you got here.
Sure. Yeah, so the name Be Act Change, so it's really center to like the business, right? It's like being your true self, being like whether that's in an individual, whether that's a company, whether that's an NGO, right? Being your mission, your vision, and your purpose every single day, like authentically being present. And then the act is great. So you know who you are, but you gotta put action into that, right? You gotta be intentional. You gotta act on that every single day to make them meaningful. And that's where change comes in, the change that you want to make into the world. I really believe all of us deep down center want to be impactful, want to bring value to this world, to this place. And that's where the change comes in, right? There's all these changes that need to be made in this world to be better, right? So that's the change. That's like the ultimate result that comes out. And how I put that all together into a business is that, for me, one of my biggest values I have is having meaningful work, and another one is contribution. And so, in my life, I found different avenues, different careers to kind of do that in, whether it was like academia, and then I was like a scientist, and then I was a diplomat for a long time, but for an international development agency where their whole mission, right, is to alleviate poverty and all that stuff. But I saw that I was basically finding places where I could fit, pieces of me, rather than really thinking about what is my full purpose and how do I want to solve problems every day and bring that how into the world every day and fulfill my purpose, mission, and vision every day. And that's when I came to it, and I was like, well, it just doesn't exist. So I have to create it myself. And so that's how it birthed. If you think about it another way. And that's what I'm committed to. I'm committed to impacting lives and helping people really discover, right, their purpose, their mission, their vision, make it happen. And when you make it happen, that's like that journey of it. That's where happiness comes in. That's where fulfillment comes in. And that's where impact happens. And then if you have a business, that's where productivity and profit happens, right? And so if everyone knows what they're working towards, right, they're intrinsically motivated, right? They know where they want to go, whether you're person, team, NGO, anything. So that's my purpose in life, to do that, to help people identify it, live it, and profit from it, right? Be able to like live whatever their dreams and goals is. And yeah, so that's how it all came about. That's how I birthed my company, and everything that I do. It's like in full alignment. Yeah.
I'm sitting here just watching you. And, for anybody who's not seeing the video, like as you're speaking, I'm cheering up in the air with my arms and I get chills, and everything about you really is so authentic. And you just emit such a beautiful light into the world because you truly are the real deal. I mean, everything you're talking about, how do you want to be? Then you have to act that way. You need to show up in the world that way to make the change. You truly are walking your talk. And that's your company. Your whole company is, if you want to make a change, you can't just talk. You have to walk your talk and lead by example. And that's exactly what you're doing. And it's just beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I love it.
No, I love it so much. I love everything about this conversation. I knew when I saw you and I saw your bio and what you do with your company, I'm like, this is a person who's making a difference. This is a person I need to bring on the show.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, first of all, oh my gosh, I feel like you have lived so much of your purpose in all these amazing ways. You've given back and expanded and raised your vibration throughout your life. And now bringing it all together to make it, because it feels easy, right? Be, act, change. But there's so much that goes into that development. And so, I want to now talk about the book that you've written because, first of all, congratulations. How exciting is that? Um, Before we get into it, I know you're doing a book
Yeah.
tour. Tell me a little bit about your book tour. Like, this is an aspiration of mine.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. So my book, I mean, it's almost like birthing two babies. It was like
Yes.
2 months in the making. But for me, why I wrote it is that, and I talk about this in my book, I grew up in very humble beginnings, as an immigrant in the United States, and no money, no anything, but I had always like big dreams, big visions, and I really I felt like I wanted to make a change, and the books that talked about that are the things that like fueled me. And how I found like answers and clarity and inspiration was through books. And so I would go to the library and check them out. And that's what told me about like the whole world that I wanted to see, that I did end up seeing. You know what I mean? Like what's out in the world? Who's doing these amazing things, right? And back in the day, it was pre-internet, right? So you had to go to the library to read about it. And these books, then there was a couple that I ended up keeping, that I ended up like buying and saving money to keep, because they were written in such a way that I could revisit it at different times in my life, and like revisit during times that either I felt confused or something happened or a setback. And so for me, my whole thing was like, I was able to get access to these people I would never have access to through their writing. And so I wanted to provide that to the world, because it was such a long journey to get here, to figure out after chasing that whole ladder, and I did chase the whole achievement ladder, at some point, and doing everything. It took me so long. And after years of working communities, figure out what is purpose, because everyone talks about it very fluffy, right? Everyone's like, follow your purpose. And people are like, is that what I love? Is that my passion? Right. And I found myself confused younger on that too. Right. And so then I had to interpret it as achievement, but it's so much deeper. It's about like the impact you want to make in the world, your legacy, what you want to be sought out for, characteristics of your childhood dream, characteristics of the person you admire now, and like and what you love is 1/8 of it, right? But and what you can teach the world, it's a whole mix, and it's how you also solve problems in your everyday. And it's so much deeper. And it was like years and years of research that I was like, I want to be the book that people can do these exercises in and really discover their purpose, right? So all the other books tell you about what purpose can do for you. And, there's a lot of great books out there, but I wanted mine to be like, this is how you actually do it, right? And you have everything in there. So like my book and the accompanying workbook, if you do all of it, you'll have clarity. I wanted to give something accessible to the whole world that they could pick up, they can do, and they can pick it up time and time again, right? That's accessible to anyone, accessible to me back then, right? That I can then explore it out and think and dream and really go into big goals and be like driven every day, and not, and also like when opportunities come or when pivotal moments come, they're very clear on, this is what I am, and is this aligned with me or not? Does this match my values or not? Does this match my purpose or not? And like really having that filter in life and canceling all the other noises around you that are like, oh no, that's not for you. Right? You're clear on what's for you, right? And you can follow that. So the book and the accompanying workbook for people who are like, I want to go even deeper, right? My workbook is my whole coaching program. It's all there for you. For me, that was a really big deal, because a big value for mine, it's meaningful work, contribution. Another one is influence, in the sense, but a positive influence, in a sense that if my book can change someone's life, that's it. That's the dream, right? It's for me, it's not about book revenue. It's about impact. And that's why I have out there, like, I have a 99-cent digital one that I don't plan to change, because I'm like, anyone in the world can access it, on whether it's a book or the work. But of course, if you want the paper, you can buy the paper, but it's not an obstacle, right? It's accessible to everyone, especially in this digital age.
I feel like I don't even know where to start, right? Because everything you said really is the heart and soul of women finding clarity, because it is the clarity of who you are, who you be, and what you want to bring into this world. And as women, whether you actually have children or not, the thing that you are bringing into this world is truly a birthing experience. And so, just like childbirth, it doesn't happen overnight. It is all a process of bringing this new being into the world. And so your business is that, and your book is that. And as a Latina, as an immigrant coming into this country, I mean, so much difference, in what life was and what life is. And then what I see I want life to be. And so you are such a shining example of that, like connecting the past, the present, the future, and not only talking about it, but giving a vehicle to get there through your book.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
through your workbook. And so, what is your book called?
Yeah. So it's called Creating Your Limitless Life. And then crossed out is Chasing the American Dream. So the way I see it is like, we're all so many of us women, right? We're these high achieving women, right? We achieve and I don't mean just in the traditional sense, right? Of like climbing the ladder. Like we achieve in our home, in our circles, right? In our professional spaces. And this is about taking the next step to becoming trailblazing, right? Making our dreams come true, trailblazing them forward. And really like going through it and like all the things that hold us back, right? People pleasing, perfectionism, overthinking. And so, my book also addresses that. Like, I know you're going to get stuff that holds you back, right? I know that you're going to face these things and we're going to talk about it. But at the same time, part of your purpose is what have you overcome and how? Because there's a million toolkits out there, but you have your own that you've used in your life, right? And the things you're overcoming, you're going to keep overcoming. So it's like revisiting that. What was that? And then putting as preventative in your life so that you don't, instead of like only using it in crisis, you're putting it in there so that it keeps moving you forward as preventative. So you never hit rock bottom. So even if those things happen, you're still moving forward, right? And so many times people start and then they stop, or like they say, like in a marathon, right? If you're running it, the worst thing you can do is stop running, right? You can just slow down, right? You put your tools in place and keep going. And
Right.
so that's another huge part of the book is like keep it going even when things get hard and life gets in the way, which is going to happen. How do we keep it going moving forward, right? So it doesn't just be like, oh, I started something and then I let it go, right? No, we can keep moving it forward, especially as women.
Yeah. As women, I feel like no matter what culture you come from, there is this expectation. There's a societal expectation that's put on all of us, right? We are going to be the homemaker. We are going to bear children. We are going to be responsible for, being the main caregiver for those children. And for me, that was my purpose. And that is what I wanted. And that isn't everyone's purpose. And that also is okay. And not only okay, but amazing because we're all so very different. And so,
Exactly.
yes, and I love the work you're doing to take away that cultural expectation. So, how do you flip the script on that?
Yeah, because that's the thing. No one's purpose is the same and no one's legacy is the same, right? So, what we've done with that whole American dream is put that everyone has the same expectation and has the same path to happiness and fulfillment. But it's totally different. It's like you said, somebody's legacy may be about transferring wisdom to their children. And that's amazing. And that's what they want to be remembered for. From other ones, it may be trailblazing and changing a narrative, right? Or you see you see like these big people who are in marches or this, right? That could be their legacy, global change. But what matters is that you're fulfilling your own legacy, whatever that is, because that's what's going to move you. If you're chasing with society, right? That's where you get the people have chased it, even including myself. I chased that whole ladder, got to the top, right? Had the financial, had the career, had everything, and I felt empty. Not that I wasn't, I could find pieces, right, in my career where part of my purpose was out, but I wasn't doing that impact or the problem solving, which is what I needed to bring out, or the legacy I wanted to leave, behind. So chasing that criteria, even though to everyone else is like success, it wasn't my success. And your own definition of success, that's what matters. That's what's going to move you, right? That's what's going to cure anxiety and depression in this society, because everyone is bringing in their own value add. And that's the thing too. It's like it also eliminates a lot of pettiness. Like, I remember in the workforce, people would always ask me, Esther, but how are you so confident in this space? Like you just walk in there and you're confident on who you are and this and that. And I said, because I know my value add. I don't believe in competition because my value add is different than your value add. So I know that the way I solve problems is unique to me. And I can tell you using my lens, I can help you do this. But at the same time, I'm going to lift everyone else around me, but using their unique lens on how they solve problem, and it's also shifting that script about individualism being selfish. That's another thing in our society, right? That as women, we're supposed to be, as part of the people pleasing thing, where we need to be there for everyone. And then when people are like, oh, when we talk about ourselves and our purpose, we're like, oh, but you're being selfish, you're being individualistic. But if you actually look at the definition of individualism really closely, there's a whole other part of the definition. It's about your uniqueness, your purpose, the value add to bring in the world. And actually, if you're actually bringing out everyone's value add, it's actually not selfish, because you're actually listening to that person. You're bringing out their biggest potential and you're lifting them up. And we can build community around everyone's uniqueness. But I think it's like shifting that narrative that it's not selfish, and that promoting your value add is not you being arrogant or anything. It's just knowing, this is what I bring in to this space, and this is how I can help you and serve you, business, family, anything, right? And being really clear. And that also helps even like with boundaries, right? If you're really clear on like your value add, what you bring to the space, and what you want to be sought out for, right? There's not going to be that misunderstanding of people seeking you out for things that you don't want, and then you having to say no, and then you feeling guilty. All that's removed because people are very clear on like, this is how I come into the world. This is how I can help and seek you for. I know I'm good at that, because there's a difference between, you can have a strength and skill at something, but doesn't mean you want to be sought out for it. Right. And there's a lot of stuff, a lot of us out there that we're like, oh, you can make a list. I have that in extras too, of all things you're sought out for, that you're like, I don't want to be sought out for that anymore. But if you're like, if you're clear on like, hey, I'm moving in this direction, these are my goals, these are my dreams, this is how I come to the world every day, this is what I be sought out for. Remember me if something comes up, then that's it. They're not going to come to you for the other things, right? So the being who you are has so many ripple effects, coming in. And then you also can align, like, whether it's family or job, like I think I was mentioning earlier, opportunities that make sense for you, right? Like, there's so much FOMO in our society, fear of missing out, that we're like, an opportunity comes and we go into straight scarcity, that we're like, well, what if we don't grab into that? It'll never come again. But if you filter it in terms of like, does that make sense for me? Is that going to put out to my legacy? Is that going to, benefit whatever your legacy is, right? If your legacy is your family, and you're not going to take something that takes away from your family time, like, traveling maybe 90% of the time, that doesn't make sense. Or like, for me, mine's meaningful work. I'm not going to take an opportunity, even though I'm really good at logistics, do something that's very about like like I can project manage anything. I'm not going to take something that's a project that has no impact, right? So you have to like, even if they paid me tons of money, it has to have an impact, right? So that's be my filter. Or involving or anything like even like for the kids' school, I'm not going to volunteer for something unless it has that where I can bring in my skill set, right? And so that's what's key, and it applies to everything. And so that's why that's a big part of like the messaging, the clarity, that's so important. And to change that narrative is like, how I'm doing it is like showcasing by example, right? By impacting one person at a time, one business at a time. They feel that transformation and they tell someone else, hey, I got that transformation. Look at me, that other people see. And it creates, right, a ripple effect, right? And walking it, right? I'm trying to like walk in the old talk. And for me, my legacy is to create a movement. So I'm going to be out there talking about it, putting myself out there to do that, and to try to change it. It's
And the
it's
thing that's so amazing about this is that it's not one particular thing. You can take everything that you've put into this book and all the skill set that you've poured into this workbook. Anyone can take it and apply it to their purpose, their qualities, their definition of who they are. And that's the beauty of it, is that it can go across all cultures, across all realms. It's fitting everywhere.
Exactly. And that's what I saw, right? Because in the international development world, I was working all across the world, right? And I noticed like, because before, and I would read things and it was all about like purposes first world. And I was like, I don't believe that. In my gut, I'm like,
Nope, I don't believe it.
And it's not true. And as I was meeting communities everywhere, but in the humanitarian world, that's how our society has put it, that first world has the answers. I'm going to go in as savior and bring in those solutions. And I was like, that doesn't feel right. I'm like, everyone has to have their uniqueness. They probably already have ideas of solutions. And like, why don't we instead listen to them? What is their purpose? What is their mission vision as a community? And why don't we fund what they want and what they're bought into, rather than us coming in with our solutions that may not, it may be beyond data, but it might not be something that they believe in, right? They have to also believe in it. And as I was, meeting all these people around the world, I'm like, no, they do all have purpose. Of course they do, right? And as I'm talking to them, they're like, you're the first person that asks us what we want, right? And then I start to realize,
Wow.
oh, narrative has to change, right? And I would be like, why don't you voice it? Well, they're like, it's part of that scarcity thing, right? Because it's twofold. One is like people coming in, and that's society too, telling you this is what you need, this is the formula, right? And then it's also like the person who's getting it or going on this journey to be very clear on where they want to go, right? So part of the work is also going, okay, but you guys also have to be very clear so that you're attracting and you're also filtering out what's not aligned with you. And if you're clear, you're most likely to attract things that are aligned to you, right? And then that's how that journey came. I was like, no, this is worldwide. We all have dreams, we all have purpose. And that's society putting labels, like worldwide society, but we're all have them. And that's what I like about it. And that's the questions that I have in there, right? It's questions for you to discover that, to answer that for yourself, and then put it all together for what makes sense for you and your own toolkit. That's for you. That's your resilience toolkit. That's your purpose toolkit that you can apply to anything you want, anywhere where you are. Yeah.
Amazing. So, a couple of things that came out is, a couple of things that I just want to extract from everything that was beautiful that you just said is this idea of we don't need to be in competition, because my lens is very different from yours, which is very different from hers. And so, what if instead of being in competition, we all were able to contribute and collaborate to build something better that we couldn't necessarily build on our own, because we're all looking and bringing in skills and bringing in our talents based on our own lived experience?
Exactly. And that's why it's so key. Like, like I do the individual work, right, on purpose, right? So your unique value add. But like for companies and teams, the mission vision is key, because that's what stops that gossiping within teams. That's what stops you're stepping on my toes, I'm
Because
stepping on.
that's a cancer.
Yes, it's toxicity. And that's what stops that. It's like, if you're all clear on like the mission vision together that you've built, using, like, knowing already your individual value add, right? You come together, bring that all together. And those questions that are in my book and workbook, you can expand that, like, to just change it. Like, instead of what impact do you want to have in the world, what impact do we want to have in the world, right? Everything, like, change it to what do we want to be sought out for? What can we teach collectively? You're bringing in everyone's, and everyone knows what are they contributing to, what is their purpose in being on that team, so then they feel like motivated, they feel valued, right? Because a lot of times there's a bunch of studies, not money doesn't always incentivize, right? The
No.
biggest incentive is you knowing that you bring value to a space and that you're valued. And that comes from, like, no promotion can do that for you, and no title can do that for you. But if you can be clear, if you have that clarity on how you fit in, and the whole team does, even if you're a leader, if you got your whole team clear on that, they're all gonna, like, boom, you guys are gonna scale and boom, so that's part of my other work, is like, okay, let's work with your team. It's work, as a team, as a corporation, as an NGO. You got to be clear, and that's what's gonna motivate your people, and that's what's gonna have everyone, like, stop all that toxicity as well, and retain, because then people are gonna stay with you for a long time because they believe in it or it's aligned. And it helps you filter out, right? Instead of interviews, us asking, like, what was your last 10? I started changing in the HR when I worked at my last job, everything about how we hired, interviews and positions. Because I'm like, I don't care if the person has 10 years. I really don't. I care if they have what we need to complement our mission and vision, right? And
Yes.
also if it's aligned with them, because then they're going to be wanting to come to work,
And
and
that's
so
how you create a culture.
exactly. And then people know exactly what you represent and they're going to be aligned to apply. And then you can filter also because you know exactly what you're looking for, what complements the team and everyone. And it goes beyond that too with families. Like, so I do this exercise with my own family. We check in all the time. Like, I need to ensure that, as I'm living my legacy, I'm also promoting my husband's, like our legacies are different,
Yeah.
and the impact we want to leave are different. And we got to make sure that I'm supporting his and he's supporting mine. And that as a family too, with my kids, I want to make sure that I'm also supporting theirs. What's their purpose? How do they solve problems? What's important to them? And guess what? They can answer these questions. I've done this activities in first and fourth grade. Kids already answer it actually way more like without reservation than adults because
Yeah.
they haven't had all that society put on them. And people are like, "Oh, my kids are too small." No, my kids have been doing this since they were 5. But I know it's my lens, but they already have. And when I do it at schools, they already have the answers. They already know what they feel inside, and they draw it out, and they're passionate about it. So imagine as a parent, if you have kids, you can foster that,
Yeah.
foster their uniqueness that they bring. And now with like AI, sometimes we like play with it. We put all 4 of us in AI and are like, what kind of activities would we enjoy, the 4 of us, And we saw that the 4 of us, we would all love board game nights. So we intentionally schedule that, you know what I mean? But there's like tools that you could
That's
use,
amazing.
like between all of us and our purpose and our legacy and like our values, what would we enjoy? What would we enjoy doing? And so you can even use it as your family, right? As a way to like come together, support each other. And I was married before I met my partner now, and I know a lot of the reason why my first marriage failed is that we were not aligned in our same legacies and purpose, and also didn't talk about it. And so
Mhm.
he didn't understand what I was trying to do, and I wasn't trying to understand him, and we were at different scales. And that, knowing that, right, you either grow together or grow apart. And this is like a tool to grow together.
But one thing I also pulled out that I love so much about what you were saying earlier is about the expectation, right? And you literally can write the expectation that other people will have on you by putting out there what your strengths are, by filtering things through your own lens and saying, yes, I want to be known for this, but no, I don't want to be known for that. And yes, I'm available for this, but no, I'm not available for that. And so that's a gift because we always think about expectation as a negative thing, holding expectation of other people or holding expectation of yourself. But this is a beautiful reframe of creating the expectation so the end result is what you want it to be.
Exactly. Because in the end of the day, right, why we hesitate to say no is because we're scared to hurt the other person's feelings. We don't want to lose that connection or relationship. And, and we hesitate. But that's because there wasn't clear expectations to begin with. Right.
And
And
we're afraid to say no for those reasons, but we're also afraid to ask for help for those same
exactly.
reasons.
Exactly. Similarly, right? But if we set that framing up front, right, the person's going to think of you. Like I remember I had a client that was my friend, and I had known her for 20 years. When we did the work together, I learned so much about her that I didn't know before. And once we had done the exercise, then afterwards I was like, wow, I had no idea that's what your alignment was. Here, boom, boom, right? And then people start thinking about you for the things that you're looking forward to, or you want to be sought out for. And then you're like, wow, if I would have told, I would have said something from a long time ago, right? All these other things would open. But people can't, they only use the information that they have, right? And so if they're seeking you out for something, because they think you enjoy that, right? They think from your actions. That's why the act part is so important. If you keep on saying yes to things that are not aligned with you, people are like, oh, she likes that, she likes that, let me ask her. And they think you're doing you a favor, because most of the time it's out of good intentions, because they think you're good at it and you like it. So that expectation setting is key, because then that person also, having empathy for the other person that's asking you is, sometimes that negative reaction when you say no is because they're taken aback going, oh my God, I thought she liked it. Now I feel horrible for asking her. Oh my God. Right. And all that can be avoided just from a conversation. Sit down and be like, hey, you know what? I started working on my goals and discovering myself. And this is where I see my life going. This is where I want to be sought out for. I know it's going to be a change, but I would love your support. Imagine that framing, and then people are like, of course, if they really your champion, I mean, that's another thing, is filtering who's your champion, who really are your champion. They're going to want to support you, and they're going to think about things to ask you for, right? Because the person that asks you also wants to feel that they're doing something nice for you. It goes both ways. And so they're going to want to start sending you things that help you. We all want to be helpful. And so, that setting is so key. And even for the workforce too, because I know you touch a little bit on business in this podcast too. Setting expectations with your manager from upfront about, this is where in the next year, I can see, this is what's aligned with me. This is what's going to help the company or the team, or, whatever you're working in. And the way I see it is that this will lead to this, and you walk them through it. And this is what I think the next year would look like. And this is part of my 5-year, right? If you have that conversation on expectation setting, and what do you think? Do you think that's possible? Can we revisit every quarter, right? You have that expectation, exactly, and you're not taken by surprise at the end of the year, right? You're doing all these other things, assuming it's in line with the manager, and then you don't get your promotion, or you get a bad review, and then you're like, oh, what did I do wrong? But you never sat down with them to plan it out, to align it to you, that conversation on what's important to you. So they think about opportunities for you, or they lay it out for you. Okay, let's come in the middle. And so those expectations are clear, and you know exactly what to expect. Or maybe it's clear to you from that conversation, I need to find another job, right? This is not going to ever be aligned with you. And you save all that heartache and time, right? So the expectation setting for everything, or for your family too, right? I'm going to be spending some time doing this from now on. When I
Yeah.
started my business, I was like, hey, I'm going to have to start meeting clients at night. I'm going to need more help, because a lot of people work, during the day, and this is how it's going to be my new schedule, right? Setting that expectation to the kids, to everyone, and I had to do that, to be like, but this is how it's going to be for a little bit, until I can, organize it. Maybe, once I have like a more stable system, maybe do lunchtime, but it's going to be like this for the next couple months. Right. And then they're like, okay, I know what to expect. Right.
Right. And Brene Brown says clear is kind. And that's absolutely, clear is kind. It's kind to you, and it's kind to everyone around you. Because when the more clear you can be, the more clarity you can find, the easier life becomes. And so I work with women who are bringing their life lessons and their stories, lessons they've learned along the way, just like you, who now have this bigger mission and they want to bring this message into the world. And being able to bring that clarity into your new business and say, this is my mission. This is how I want to be. This is how I want to act. This is how I want to move forward. This is why I want it to happen. This is how I'm going to create this structure so that this can happen. Right. And being clear every step of the way just brings ease with it. No matter if you're talking about, like, this spans socioeconomic class, this spans families, entrepreneurship, CEOs, like everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah,
And the hardest part is finding that clarity. Right. And so
that's it.
that's why I'm like, that's for me was the driver, right? The book and workbook, and what I give to people, because a lot of times it's like, but I don't know where it is that I want to do, or people get frozen in the next step, rather
Yeah.
than taking a step back. I'm like, it's okay. Let's find out, who are you, right? Who do you want to bring every day? You might not have, you might know the first year or two, or 5 year, you might not have all the steps written out, but that's okay. You know how you want to show up. right? And
That's
so
it.
how do you find, that was for me important, like giving people the tool to find, right? One of the tools, right, that you can find and use to find that clarity to, so that you can do all those amazing things you want to do. And then, and your gift. And once you know your gift, no one can stop you. That's for me. That's why it's like high achieving to trailblazing, because once you know who you are, you're never going to apologize for who you are again, because you're going to know that's my value. That's my gift to the world. And I'm not going to change it for anyone.
No, no, because that's your true self with a capital S. And that's the most important thing, because I tell people all the time, it's so important to be selfish, but self with a capital S, right? Because if you're not serving your most authentic self, how are you going to serve anyone else? And truly, the biggest act of service you can bring is your authenticity, your resonance, which means you're bringing love, which means you're bringing your whole heart to anything.
Exactly, exactly. And it's not being compounded, right, by society, by noise, by anything. And you're allowing other people into that space,
Yeah.
and to and being that role model, which, like us growing up, we didn't see that much. You saw it only for a few people. And so being able to then, build this community of role models of women showing up like in their uniqueness and their self is huge. It's huge for our next generation.
It's huge. I've always been a loud person. I remember my best friend's mom when I was in third grade saying, Pascale, you're so loud. But that said, I also at the same time, I've always called myself extroverted introvert, right? Because I can show up and I do talk loud, but at the same time, I've always been very shy and quiet in another way and very hidden. I was a very hidden person. And so even just having the podcast, I think shocked me that I would have a podcast and be so outspoken in this way, but it has given voice to this other place inside of me that I do think is so important and that I do want to bring to other people. It is my most authentic self. And, in that idea of everyone has a gift and everyone has a purpose. And I just asked my kids yesterday, what do you feel like is your best attribute? What do you feel like is your best quality? And they really had a big hesitation and they're like, well, what do you think is yours? And I did hesitate for a moment and I was like, it's my kindness. I bring love to everything and I try to hold loving space for everyone. Right. And so that's part of my bigger purpose is just to hold that loving space. Reflecting on that question is so important if you want to figure out your purpose is what are some of your best attributes?
Yeah, and you don't have to do this alone. Like the first exercise I give, actually, like the clients that come to me because they're like in this space of like, right? Is I tell them, you know what? Like you're gonna message 5 people, 5 of your champions, and tell them I gave them this homework to you, right? Like, because I know that first is awkward, right? And be like, hey, have I impacted your life? Why are you my friend? Why are you close to me? Like, what value have I brought into your life? Right? I have a series of like 10 questions to ask them, right? They get these responses back. Like, that's your living legacy, right? So you don't even have to start with you trying to say, what is my value, right? Ask the 5 champions around you that known you for a long time that have been there by you, and they're going to email you something amazing. And then that's like the first start. Like when I work with people, they need that boost because then they read and they're like, oh my God, I totally forgot that I helped them with this. And wow, that's what they remember. That's amazing. I totally forgot about that, but that was impactful for them. And then as you start putting it all together, you start seeing they have trends. There's a way that you've been showing up and solving problems for folks or giving space to people that's unique to you. And that somehow is there's a trend in all of them, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of times, like you can reach out to others and get some of that insight for you before you even embark on all the questions to be like, oh wait, yes, I am unique. Wow, there is a reason why people seek me out. And then dig further, because like if you're stuck and paralyzed, you don't there's a way, by getting this information to give you that first boost out. And it's a
Absolutely.
journey, And I remember you said something that your podcast, right? I remember when I first started social media, it was similar to me because I was coming from like a world and a position where I couldn't have a public face, right? The public face I could have was representing my job, but I couldn't have anything of my own. And when I started to have something on my own, it was really hard. It's like what you mentioned. Like I wanted to be this voice out, but at the same time, I had like traumas of like being hyper scrutinized as a high achiever, right? Any mistake I made was blown up into a billion, whoa, or, she forgot a period, or she forgot this, or why didn't you get 100, even like from, back when you're a child, right? Why didn't you get 100? Why'd you get 97, right? And all those things, like the perfectionism. And I found myself in the videos, the first ones being like so stiff because I was like, oh, how do I look? How do I this? How do I this? What am I saying? And so, like, for people who are starting on that, it is going to be a little uncomfortable at first, right? And even the legacy exercise is going to be uncomfortable, but it's going to be uncomfortable, just like recognizing it's uncomfortable because of all the other events that you've had in your life, right? And all these things that people have said. But as you start showing up in your authentic self every single day, it gets easier and easier to a point where you're like, wow, I don't know how else not to be, right? But that transition, it's like telling people it is normal that it's going to feel a little awkward at first, especially as you start getting aligned again. So what you were mentioning to me, like brought me back to that, like that, now you see my social media. Yeah, I talk every day, but it wasn't like that at first. It took a while.
Exactly. But the
Yeah,
beauty of it is that once you can take that first action of reaching out to your 5 champions, right? Then you read all of that and that flips into an inspired thought, which then flips into an inspired action. And then when you take action on that inspired action, that's going to flip to another inspired thought. And at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the year, you're going to be able to turn around and say, holy Moses, look how far I've come. Where at the beginning, you couldn't have imagined you could have even taken the first step forward.
exactly,
The
exactly.
first step is how it all starts. The
Yeah.
first step is the golden step.
Yeah, and there's so many people who are like, "Well, I can't because I'm scared of failing or I'm scared of losing it all," and this and that. But you won't. If you are your true self, you will never lose it all because that's who you've been. It's who you've been. And failure is not you, it's an event, right? Yeah, my first videos were not great, but then I took a class on how to make better videos, right? I didn't see it as like Esther failed. No, I'm not a video.
Failure is a frame of mind,
You got to
right?
just grow, change, try, keep going, and it's just going to get better and better and better. But as long
Yeah,
as you're showing up as yourself, that's all that matters. And people, and the journey is part of the joy, but it's a whole framing, right, in your mind and remembering that at one point, you learned how to walk, right? It wasn't great at first. You stumbled, and when you were a baby, you didn't care that you fell 10 times and then did it, but then you did it. And it's going to be the same, right? As you're taking your steps, they're going to be a little messy at first, and then it's going to become boom, straightforward.
exactly. And before you know it, you're running.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, Dr. Esther, I could talk to you all day. And so I would love for everyone to buy your book. And I love so much that you're making it accessible in virtual copy. I'm going to need my own physical copy because for me, there's nothing better than a book in my hands. But um, for anyone who would like to take you up on your offer of that 99-cent copy, how can they find that?
Yes, Amazon. So Amazon, it's there. It's on the ebook. You can find it there. And also coming soon in like the next month, it'll also be on digital in Barnes and Nobles and other stores. But right now, you can just get it on Amazon straight up 99 cents. And then you have the hard cover and you also have a soft paperback, right? People have different textures that they like. So there's
Different preferences.
everyone.
I'm
Exactly.
so excited for you. I'm going to put the link to your website and the link to the 99-cent book on Amazon in show notes so anyone can just click on it for ease of access. And I just can't wait to dig into it myself. This has been an absolutely amazing conversation. Thank you for being here. And I just can't wait to watch you as you continue to soar.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I love this podcast. So thank you.
What an amazingly astounding human being. Is there really anything that Dr. Esther cannot, does not, or has not done, right? My goodness, she is the ability to bridge the gap across communities, across cultures, across countries. She is the epitome of what we need more of in this world. Be Act Change is not just a business, it's a movement and it's a way of life. As we close out this evening, I want to remind you of my upcoming 3-day virtual event on November 15th, 16th, and 17th called Business Breakthrough Challenge. In just 60 minutes per day, I will teach you to take your life lessons and turn them into a profitable business. Register now at womenfindingclarity.com/profit. And you can also find it as a hyperlink in show notes. Remember, the universe is abundant and success is your birthright. Let's align, elevate, and thrive together, one conversation at a time. Good night. Thank you for being in our Women Finding Clarity community. If you're enjoying this podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite listening platform and share it with someone you know so they can find clarity from the conversation as well. Remember, the universe is abundant and success is your birthright. Let's align, elevate, and thrive together, one conversation at a time. See you next week.